Good morning to everyone. Government Thakur Ranma Singh College,
sir.
Rewa is one of the premier institutions of Madhya Pradesh. Being an autonomous institution, the college enjoys the privilege of Center for Excellence since 2002. This college has been conferred the status of college with potential for excellence in 2010. The college has been accredited A grade consecutively in 2 cycles. Currently, the college has obtained CGPA 3.35 by NAAC during second cycle in December 2016, which is A+ on current NAAC parameters. The college was conferred the status of Institute of Excellence in Higher Education by the government of Madhya Pradesh in 2018. This college also enjoyed the status of Mentor Institute by NAAC, endowed with responsibility of mentoring non-accredited institutions for NAAC accreditation. The college promotes a culture of academic excellence, innovation, and research. The government TRS College Rewa is organizing many programs for the development of quality under the scheme of academic development of higher education of Madhya Pradesh. Today's our esteemed speaker is Dr. Vinita Singh Chaudhary ji, Professor of English, Hamidia College, Bhopal. I have heard many times of Dr. Vinita Singh in Narona Academy during the various training programs and other academic interaction. She is not only proficient in English language, but are proficient in every genre. It is a matter of pride for our college that today we will hear their lecture. I invite to Dr. Shalini Dubey, Head of the Department of English and convener of this workshop, to conduct this program. Over to Dr. Shalini Dubey.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, everybody. I welcome at this, good afternoon. I welcome at this important academic event all the participants and especially Ma'am Chaudhary and I'm very thankful to her that she has given us this opportunity on a very short period. That I think yesterday only I talked to her and she approved her that to be here. And at this time, Government TRS College, this is the second webinar that we are organizing in this session. And today the topic is women and literature, on which our esteemed speaker will speak on. On behalf of, I welcome Dr. Arpita Avasthi. Unfortunately, she is not able to address us today as she has some other very important and serious matters to address. And on behalf of her, Dr. S.P. Shukla will give her message to us. Before this, I invite Sufia Ansari for Saraswati Vandana. Sufia Ansari.
Ya kundendu tushar har dhavla, ya shubhra vastravrita, ya veeda vardand mandit kara, ya shwet padmasana, ya brahma chut shankara pravriti bhe Devai sada vandita samam patu saraswati bhagavati nishesh jadyapaha nishesh jadyapaha. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sufia. And now I would like to invite Dr. S.P. Shukla. Please give the message of Principal, Government TRS College. Dr. S.P. Shukla, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon to the eminent speaker of the day and all participants in this one-day national webinar. It is a pride moment for Government Thakur Ranmat Singh College to hold a one-day national webinar on women and literature, which is being organized by the Department of English in coordination with IQAC. Women's role in literature has evolved throughout history and had led women to develop into strong, independent roles. The tradition of women writing has been much ignored due to the inferior position given to women that they have held in male-dominated societies. Some of the first recorded attempts to note women's contribution to literature were catalogs published in the 18th century and were written by men. Yet, for the most part, the majority of people interested in reading and responding to works written by women were women. Second wave of feminism in the 70s and 80s sparked a resurgence in forging a place for the work of women. Processes were found that dedicated themselves to publishing lost or ignored works by women. Women in modern literature often include strong, independent females juxtaposed by oppressed women to provide examples for young female readers and to critique shortcomings of our society. To conclude, it feels nice to have a day to celebrate the achievements of women. The Department of English, with its HOD, Dr. Salini Dubey, and the faculty members of the department, is worthy of thanks for their commendable effort to organize this webinar to commemorate the contribution of women in English literature. I welcome the eminent speaker of the day, Dr. Vinita Singh Chaudhary, on behalf of my principal, Dr. Arpita Awasthi, who has some other official engagements. For further proceedings, I invite Dr. Mahesh Shukla. Mahesh Shukla, sir. Mahesh Shukla has probably left for some important work. And
sir, let me take the baton.
Further procedures should be continued by Dr. Salini Dubey, ma'am.
Okay. Again, I extend a warm welcome to thank you, Dr. S.P. Shukla, sir, and I'm extending a warm welcome to all to our speaker and all the participants. Today the topic is women. Let me introduce the subject on which Dr. Chaudhary will speak on and deliver her lecture. Women in literature. So what the women in literature from the ancient time, from the Greek mythology, because in the literature, from the Greek literature to the English literature, so women in Greek mythology were perceived to be more sexual objects than individuals. Many were then advantaged of by the gods and by human beings. One would see that women's rights were very limited and they were not allowed to express much of their freedom. And in medieval time, the women of the medieval times were surprisingly a lot more candid and sexual than one might expect of an era where the ideal of femininity was Mary, Virgin Mary, the mother of Jesus. In actuality, the women in literature of the period, as well as the historical female figures, seem to be torn between ideals and physical desires. And in Elizabethan literature, the theme of the superiority of men was typical genre of authors took within their writing. Women were not looked to as a person, but were considered a mere necessity for the procreation process. And if we talk about Victorian period, women were, the role of women in 19th century literature was one in which they redefined their place in society by accepting an image of themselves which involved both home-centeredness and inferiority. And in the 20th century, woman is more vocal, and women's role in literature was evolved in 20th century throughout history and had led women to develop into strong independent roles. So this was the introduction that we are going to talk today. And now I invite Dr. Sarita Kadam for the formal introduction of our esteemed speaker.
Thank you, madam. I would like to tell about Dr. Vinita Singh Chaudhary, our esteemed speaker. Dr. Vinita Singh Chaudhary is professor in the Department of English, Government, Hamidia, Arts and Commerce College, Bhopal. She has an experience of 31 years of teaching English language and literature, both at the undergraduate and postgraduate levels in various colleges of MP and Chhattisgarh. Dr. Chaudhary is an alumnus of Sophia Girls School, Meerut, Uttar Pradesh, a gold medalist in her post-graduation from the Institute of Advanced Studies, Meerut University. She subsequently cleared the Madhya Pradesh Public Service Commission exam for assistant professors, ranking 3rd in order of merit, and again qualified Madhya Pradesh Public Service Commission exam for direct professor, ranking 5th in order of merit. Her areas of specialization are British literature, Indian literature, feminism, pluralism, multiculturalism, narrative traditions, globalization, and bilingualism. She has presented and published several research papers in national and international seminars and conferences all over India. She has authored 1 book on Jane Austen and co-edited 7 books of English language prescribed for undergraduate students of Madhya Pradesh, sponsored by Madhya Pradesh Hindi Granth Academy. She is guiding students for research in areas of British Indian literature, Indian literature, comparative literature, and African literature. She is subject expert and trainer for virtual classes in English that are relayed all over Madhya Pradesh. Dr. Vinita Singh Chaudhary is a regular resource person at UPSC New Delhi, RCVP Naronna Academy of Administration Bhopal, and English Language Teaching Institute Bhopal for the last couple of years. She is subject expert in as many as 19 universities and autonomous colleges and has conducted PhD coursework at Barkatullah University. She delivers special lectures for probationers and officers of All India Administrative Services, IAS, IPS, IFS, Central Services, trainee officers of the State Administrative and other services, and principals of School Education Department, Madhya Pradesh. The topics of her special lectures include English language, English grammar, communicative English, workplace etiquette, verbal and non-verbal communication, leadership skills, public speaking. She is a regular evaluator for book reviews carried out by the officers of All India Services in their foundation course at the Academy of Administration, Bhopal. Among the recent training programs that Dr. Vinita Singh Chaudhary has successfully completed at the Academy of Administration, Bhopal are Master Trainers Development, ITP program, Design of Training and Experiential Learning Tools, latter 3 courses having been developed by Thames Valley University, Slough, United Kingdom, in association with DOPT, Government of India. She has successfully completed Direct Trainer Skills Program of DOPT also, which further enhanced her credentials as a national recognized trainer of Government of India. She has been in the core team of experts that has developed modules for RCVP Naronna Academy for communicative skills in English and induction course for the newly recruited assistant professors by MPPSC. She is also the master trainer for Comet Bhopal. She has been actively involved with NAC and has been a resource person for various activities associated with NAC at the state level. With these words, I hand over the dais to Dr. Vinita Singh Chaudhary, Madam. Madam, over to you.
Thank you, Sarita. Thank you so much. Am I audible to everyone?
Yes, madam.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes,
Thank you.
ma'am.
Yeah, ma'am, you are audible.
Thank you. Sabhi ko mera namaskar. A very good afternoon,
Not
everyone.
now. We cannot hear you.
Cannot hear me? Hello. Am I audible?
Yeah, ma'am. Yeah. Where are you?
Is it okay, ma'am?
Yeah, ma'am.
I'll continue now.
Yeah.
Once again, a very good afternoon, friends. At the outset, I express my special thanks to Dr. Arpita Awasthi, the principal of TRS College, the convener of this online national webinar on women and literature, Dr. Shalini Dubey, professor and head, organizing secretary, Dr. Sarita Kadam, and special thanks to Dr. Mahesh Shukla and Dr. S.P. Shukla. You all have given me this opportunity today to give a talk and share my views on women's specific subject when the humanity has just celebrated the International Women's Day early this week. So before I start my discourse, let me congratulate all the human beings in general and women in particular on this occasion. I'm happy that the organizers of this webinar have chosen a very befitting topic, as Shalini Dubey ma'am just said, for discussion in this International Women's Day week. And I really admire their thoughtfulness. Taking cue from the very idea behind the celebration of the International Women's Day, which commemorates cultural, political, and socio-economical achievements of women, and brings into focus the issues like women's rights, gender equality, violence against women, etc. I will try to focus on women as they appear in the literary world. May I share my PPT now? Just give me a second, please. Madam Host has disabled sharing.
No, what, ma'am?
It's giving the message that host has disabled the participant screen sharing. Kindly allow me to share my PPT.
Yeah, ma'am. Yeah. Ma'am, you are sharing your PPT?
No, I can't share, ma'am. You have to give permission for that.
No, ma'am, you can do that.
No, it is saying host has disabled participant screen sharing. It is giving this.
Okay.
Madam, Dr. Mahesh is trying for that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll wait. All right.
अरे यार कहाँ गया कुछ नहीं कर दिया वो ये शेयर
Is it done?
SP शुक्ला सर हो गया क्या? SP शुक्ला सर?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, Vinita ma'am, now you are co-host. You can share your PPT. Vinita ma'am, you are co-host now.
Yeah.
It's not taking because I'm. 1 second. Should I try from my mobile?
No.
Taking from my. 1 second. Ma'am, I'm at this HP. From here, I'm sharing it. I'm on the desktop right now.
मैम आपको को होस्ट बना दिया हूं, आप शेयर कर लीजिए। आपको को होस्ट बना दिया हूं, शेयर कर लीजिए। शेयर स्क्रीन आया, ऑप्शन आया शेयर स्क्रीन।
शेयर स्क्रीन पे जा रहे हैं सर। इट इज गिविंग होस्ट डिसेबल्ड पार्टिसिपेंट स्क्रीन शेयरिंग।
ओके, आपको को होस्ट बना दिया इनेबल टू को होस्ट।
सर हो नहीं रहा है ये, क्योंकि मैं पीसी पर हूँ अपने। मैं पीसी से कर रही हूँ अपने। इट्स नॉट टेकिंग।
आपको होस्ट बना देता हूँ, चलिए।
आप होस्ट बना दीजिए, सो मे बी दैट विल अलाउ मी।
जस्ट ये लीजिए, होस्ट बना दीजिए,
देख लिए। कैसे कल एडमिशन कर दिए, सब कुछ कर दिए, तो क्या कर दिए आगे देखिए। देखिए सब हमारा काम है।
Please everyone request mute yourselves except our esteemed speaker.
Yes, sir.
Please mute your mics except the speaker.
Sir, I'm not able to share yet.
VC just मैंने इनको यहाँ बनाया है यार।
Are you able to do it, sir?
शुक्ला सर हो गया?
मैडम मैं अभी लैपटॉप पे भी आ गई हूँ तो भी नहीं हो रहा है।
बना दिया है उन्होंने। शुक्ला सर?
मैम ये शेयर स्क्रीन ऑप्शन है।
कह रहे हैं कि उसमें लिखा है कि
आपको होस्ट बना दिया।
आपको होस्ट बना दिया है मैम। ये शेयर स्क्रीन से देखिए।
मैम it is coming host disabled participant screen share.
अभी भी वही आ रहा है महेश।
आपको होस्ट बना दिया।
डिसेबल इनेबल नहीं हो सकता किसी का।
अब इनेबल नहीं हो सकता।
Should I log in?
एक मिनट।
समस्या जानते क्या है? समस्या ये है कि मैडम ने कहीं और
मैंने सर लैपटॉप से भी खोल लिया है।
करिए
जी,
आप एज होस्ट लॉग इन, नॉट एज पार्टिसिपेंट।
मैम वीसी आई थिंक आपने दो डिवाइस खोला है।
हाँ जी,
होस्ट बनाया है पीला में, जो वीसी आ रहा है उसमें होस्ट बनाया है।
हाँ तो मैंने दोनों खोले हुए, दोनों में नहीं हो रहा है सर।
इसमें हो जाना चाहिए,
नहीं हो रहा है।
तो या तो फिर आप पार्टिसिपेंट में जाकर के दूसरे में आप होस्ट बना दीजिए अपने आप को।
मैं should I log out?
Actually, you log in as host, not as participant or co-host.
How is that done, ma'am? I don't know.
नहीं, अब आप होस्ट
नहीं, वो महेश शायद पार्टिसिपेंट की तरह लॉग इन किया है मैडम ने, शायद इसलिए दिक्कत आ रही है क्या?
मैडम एक मिनट जाता हूँ, मैं अपने उसमें देखता हूँ।
अभी भी आ रहा है मैम, होस्ट डिसेबल्ड। Ma'am, should I send my PPT to you?
To Mahesh Shukla sir. Mahesh is leaving, I think. Mahesh Shukla sir can do that.
Madam, Mahesh is trying.
अच्छा अच्छा, ठीक है।
He's trying to make it. मैडम ने वो एचपी के नाम से उन्होंने रखा है, देखिए एचपी के नाम से उसको होस्ट बनाना होगा।
हाँ फिर देखिए मैम, मैंने बना दिया आपको फिर को होस्ट एचपी में।
एचपी में सर, मैं एचपी पे ही हूँ अभी, और उसमें आ रहा है होस्ट डिसेबल्ड पार्टिसिपेंट स्क्रीन। शुड आई लॉग इन अगेन फ्रॉम दिस?
नहीं ऐसे, मैं तो आपको फिर से बना दिया होस्ट। कैसा हो रहा है?
People are sending me message that she should log in like as host or co-host. So not as participant. कैसे log in करें? है ना?
I'm back here. Host disabled आ रहा है सर अभी भी इसमें. You have not enabled me. It is saying host is disabled.
Just wait, ma'am.
I can't hear you, Shukla sir.
Sir, yeah, ma'am. Which device you have used? Laptop or mobile?
Yeah, now I can hear you, but I'm not able to share the screen yet, sir.
But ma'am, you are not so in participant list.
I'm not showing the participant list.
Yeah.
But I'm very much here before you, sir.
अच्छा महेश, ये बता रहे हैं बच्चे, क्योंकि मीटिंग पहले से शेड्यूल्ड थी, इसलिए ये प्रॉब्लम आ रहा है। आप रीशेड्यूल कर दीजिए अभी, और लिंक भी
मेक ए को-होस्ट अगेन। आई हैव मेक ए को-होस्ट
और उनको को-होस्ट
अगेन।
नहीं, इसको रीशेड्यूल कर दो और को-होस्ट बना दो।
नहीं, वो ऐसा वो नहीं होता, हो जाता है।
अच्छा ठीक।
Ma'am, again you have co-host.
What should I do, sir? Tell me. Sir, if I share my PPT on your mail, can you do it from there?
मैम एक मैंने ट्यूटोरियल भेजा है आपको, थोड़ा सा मैसेज में देखिए उसको, उस तरह करिए। तो
मैडम एचपी नाम से जुड़ी हुई, विनीता चौधरी नाम से नहीं जुड़ी हुई। वो एचपी आ रहा है ना, देखिए उनके नाम क्या?
नहीं एक जस्ट 2 में जुड़ी।
हाँ तो एक में
वो इसीलिए गड़बड़ हो रहा है। विनीता चौधरी
वो वहां से पहले
मैं बाकी सब जगह से लॉग आउट कर रही हूँ सर, सिर्फ यहीं से जुड़ी हूँ मैं।
एक जस्ट
I've logged out from every.
ये एचपी से जुड़ी है। अच्छा वो सॉरी एचपी से
एचपी से जुड़ी। अभी देख लिए।
हाँ अब देखिए मैम,
एचपी बन गई होस्ट। हाँ अब आ जाएगा चलिए।
Can you see the PPT now?
Muted.
ESP has started screen sharing. Yeah. Thank you, ma'am.
There now?
Yes.
Thank you so much, sir. I'm so sorry for the inconvenience.
No.
Let me put it to the slideshow. All right. Hope everybody can see the PPT now. Yes?
Yes, madam.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And good afternoon, friends.
Thank you, Mahesh sir, Shukla sir.
May I start, madam?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. As Madam Shalini Dubey had said regarding women and literature, so once again, I take you back, right, starting from the Vedas and Purans. We know that the Vedas, Purans, and the Upanishads, they are the mirrors that reflect the glorious parts of India, its history and the civilization, language, literature, philosophy, and theology. The Vedic tradition, as we all know, has held a high regard for the qualities of women, who's portrayed as the feminine embodiment of important qualities and powers. Of course, if we mention the forms, whether we talk about Lakshmi, goddess of fortune, Saraswati, the goddess of learning, Durga, the goddess of strength and power, and the like, or whether we talk about Sati, Sita, Anasuya, Arundhati, Draupadi, or Kundi. There are so many glimpses about the role women have played in literature. We know, and yes, it is widely acknowledged that whatever we do about literature, whatever we say about literature, it is the reflection of the society. So what I'm going to take up today, I'll be dealing with the historical perspective of women in literature. See, it's such a vast topic, it is not possible to take up everything. So I've basically focused in a general perspective, as Madam Dubey had just said, starting from the Elizabethan, coming up to the modern century. In feminism, as we see it in the Western world, feminism in the Indian context, relating to the literature written by women, about women, and of course, little impact of the regional women authors. So literature, it is the reflection of society. It reflects what? It is the perception. It is the attitudes of the society. It portrays human life through the characters that are there in literature. It is not wrong to say that literature is witness to the evolution of women through ages. That's right. The changing role of women in literature from the past to present. What is it indicating basically? It is telling us the evolution of women and the empowerment of women. If we talk about the Vedic age, see the slide you can see, students, women during the early Vedic period enjoyed equal status with men in all aspects of life. And when we talk about the Vedic women, we talk about Gargi and Maitreyi. Who is Gargi and who is Maitreyi? What are we talking about basically? See, Rigved contains about 1,000 hymns. And we know that, yes, there's a lot of contribution of women. But when we talk about Maitreyi, who's the woman seer and the philosopher, she is the one who has contributed towards the enhancement of the Indian tradition. She was well-versed, we can say, in the Hindu scriptures, not an ordinary woman, you know. She had asked her husband that despite the wealth in the world, is there anything that can make her immortal? Right? And that was the reason why the husband had imparted her the doctrine of the soul and the knowledge of attaining immortality. Talking about Gargi, the Vedic prophetess, she was the daughter of a sage. And what is the main statement, the question that she had asked? The layer that is above the sky and below the earth, which is described as being situated between the earth and the sky, and which is indicated as a symbol of the past, present, and future. Where is it situated? So coming from the role, or you can say, talking about women, the strength of women, which has come through the literature, we will go on further. A quick glance to the impact of Western civilization in the modern literature. Of course, with the impact of Western civilization came the rise of political consciousness, emergence of nationalism, and with that came a stronger voice of women. And this stronger voice of literature. Let's take the historical perspective. What was the role of women throughout the ages of literature? Talking about Greek mythology, women in Greek mythology, their rights were, of course, limited to a certain extent. They were not allowed to have a free voice. The freedom was curtailed. It was limited to a certain extent. Of course, it was not unlikely to see goddesses using their powers for vengeance, and we have seen it in the mythological tales. Existence of goddesses attributed great amounts of power to the female characters. Talking about medieval literature, if we have a very careful, focused reading of the literature of medieval times, what are we going to find, students? We find the first buds of a feminist literature which comes up from the words on the pages. And as we move on to the Elizabethan literature, Madame Dubé has already referred to Elizabethan literature in the opening statement. That was a time when the society was dominated by men. The theme of superiority of men was there. The social and the political power was totally in the hands of men in the Elizabethan England. Equality between the sexes was not actually present during this era. And when we talk about Elizabethan literature, it is not possible to go further without the mention of Shakespearean women. What about the Shakespeare's heroine? I'm sure all the students and the fraternity present over here have seen and read Shakespeare. They know that Shakespearean women are often strong, and the way they go against the tradition in society, they have a depth in the character. We know that in the Globe Theatre, when the drama during the Shakespearean times was enacted, it was men, the male, who were doing the part of female. So the feminine gender was displayed through the costumes. If we take a quick glance on these plays where the women of Shakespeare, the heroines of Shakespeare, have emerged as very strong women. As I said, my focus is going to be on the strength of women as we move towards literature. Women in Shakespeare's plays were often underestimated regarding their social roles, but the way Bard showed how women could influence men around them. If we talk about the upper classes, of course, they had that unenviable position. There are a number of powerful women in Shakespeare, and we know that their political influence was really great. And Shakespeare, he has used the Elizabethan theatre conventions of women disguising themselves as men. So like, first of all, at the left side, you can see the slide, and it shows Cordelia, the daughter of King Lear. When King Lear decides as to who loves him most, Cordelia said, just like a daughter, she takes her father. And enraged, King Lear banishes her and even tells the two suitors who had come for wedding that he is not going to give any dowry to them. If you remember the story, the King of France finally agrees to take her for herself because she stood for her father. She emerged as a strong woman, showing great courage. And later, in the latter part of the drama, we see when the other two have cruelly rejected Lear. He was totally defeated. It was she who helped him to learn what the bond between a father and daughter is. She has shown great strength throughout when her sisters have hanged her and Lear also dies a broken heart. Talking about Merchant of Venice, we see Portia, unusual since her father's death, having no brother, but she performs the role of a man and then manages the very wealthy estate. She comes up, though she is disguised as a famous young judge, she shows extraordinary qualities in delivering her judgment. So where lies her power? Yes, it lies in her wisdom, recognized by all those who do not know that she is a woman. In a real sense, we can say she exercises power over the present. Talking about Lady Macbeth, not to forget, a very strong woman, she exercises power over Macbeth, especially in the first half of the play when it is Lady Macbeth who encourages Macbeth to murder Duncan. So we find Lady Macbeth. She comes in very strongly as he wavers and finally he goes ahead with it. So we find here in Lady Macbeth a very strong woman. But not all that strong to deal with the guilt that she has. Psychology, she may not be strong. Their marriage may fall apart, they may become strange. She suffers those terrible nightmares, but it is the woman that comes on the surface. If you talk in Midsummer Night's Dream, then Hermia was very strong. If you talk about Othello, then it was Desdemona. So of course, Desdemona submits passively to Othello. Yet in the beginning, she shows her strength when she refuses to get married to the person selected by her father. She comes up with that famous speech. So see, when you're talking about the Elizabethan literature and we talk about the Shakespearean heroines, we know that yes, the voice of women is emerging. Yes, the woman is coming out. When we talk about Woyla and Twelfth Night, yes, it shows her ability to adapt herself to the circumstances in spite of the female upbringing that comes up. And from Shakespeare, even if you come to the Victorian era, this was a time, or we can say this was a period when women, they were being portrayed as protagonists more often than in the past. So there are lots of novels, lots of fiction writers who were writing about women. And what emerged regarding the status of women in the society? It is evident from these works that during this time, women were still in a subjugated role, despite their desire to break free of the restrictions in the society. I've put on the slide the famous quote by Tennyson: "Man for the field and woman for the hearth, man for the sword and for the needle sheath, man with the head and woman with the heart, man to command and woman to obey. All else is confusion, needs no explanation at all regarding the status of women." But of course, there were strong women too. For example, if you take the most common, the most common novel, you can say The Pride and Prejudice, which I'm sure all of you have gone through. I remember the famous lines stated that the very whom I really love, and still fewer of whom I think well. The more I see of the world, the more am I dissatisfied with it. And every day confirms my belief of the inconsistency I will request the participants
Please
to kindly
mute your
mute their
mics, except the speaker. Please mute your mics, all of you.
Thank you so much. I'll continue with the quotation. Every day confirms my belief of the inconsistency of all human characters and of the little dependence that can be placed on the appearance. So you can see how outspoken Elizabeth Bennet was in the novel Pride and Prejudice. She's one of my favorite protagonists. The entire role centers around her romance with Fitzwilliam Darcy. So we find Elizabeth and we admire her because of her intelligence, because her strong sense of humor, and of course, coming up with whatever she has in mind. If you talk about even Persuasion by Jane Austen, she's another very strong heroine who is ready, whatever comes in life that she is going to be responsible for. Then talking about Charlotte Brown's Jane Eyre, again, feminist leanings are there. I'm sure I don't think I have said anything rash. However, you must burn it when read. So this also comes out. Charlotte Brown comes as a very strong woman. I would just come with a quotation. Do you think I'm an automation, a machine without feelings? This is what Jane Eyre wrote. She started writing at the age of 7, or rather 8, I think. And she always stands up for herself. So you can see how strong women were emerging, coming and starting from the Elizabethan period, coming up to the Victorian age. Elizabeth Barrett Browning, an English poet, and then we have George Eliot, the writer of Adam Bede and The Mill on the Floss. So these were strong women who were coming up with the women protagonists, in a way representing the women sensibility, the sensitivity towards women. And then I've taken up few modern women writing in this 20th century. They're coming with the famous writers. For example, we take up Margaret Atwood in 1939, a great feminist. She encourages women to fight back oppression. The most famous work is The Handmaid's Tale. This is a satirical novel where women are nothing more than handmaids. So once again, totally restrained, totally curtailed in their role, not allowed to go beyond their boundaries. The story is about Offred, a handmaid who embarks on a very unorthodox kind of relationship with an official of a very high rank. So these are few, you can say, some women writers who have come up with the feelings of women, with the women protagonists, coming up with whatever is going in the mind and not trying to suppress their innermost feelings. With the Atwood, we talk about Naomi Wolf. In 1962, she was writing The Beauty Myth, the famous feminist writer of the 20th century. She focuses on how society tends to force women into achieving a certain look, how often women are discredited in the mainstream media. Talking about Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, her talent is great, and I'm sure most of us have heard about her famous work, Americana. Her talent is bringing out the underrepresented voices from the feminist movement to the foreground. What is all this feminism we are talking about? Why do we talk about the women's right, or that we should focus on the equality and liberty of women? Why is there a question on the gender sensitivity? Why it should be a universally appealing concept? So Chimamanda Ngozi has written 2 more famous works. One is A Purple Hibiscus. I put it on the slide. So it's going to help the students to get the book, and also that we should all be feminists. And once again, the very title of this, We Should All Be Feminists, says that why and how. Questioning about the independence, the freedom, and the liberty of women. What is it all about? And is it a universal concept? These questions arise when you read her Americana. Then, of course, Alice Walker, one of my favorite writers, or I should say feminist writers. I remember long back when I had seen the movie The Color Purple. And I tell all my students who are working on feminism to see the movie. You come to know that, yes, what kind of marginalization she's talking about, and what is the double repression. The full name of Alice Walker is Alice Malsinia Talwa Kate Walker, an American novelist, short story writer, poet, and also an activist. A novel, The Color Purple, it deals with the inequality between the sexes, the injustice of domestic abuse, injustice of sexual abuse. She talks about the struggle of women, how they had struggled in order to have their own identity, to be recognized as individuals, demanding fair and equal treatment. Then a few more, Maya Angelou, a famous civil rights figures in the century. She was also given the Presidential Award of Freedom in 2011. She has written more than 36 books in a time, and I put the famous book by her, I know why the caged bird sings. The very title of the work written by her, A Bird and She's Caged. What are we talking about? What are those restrictions? Restriction on the mind, restriction on the thought. What is it that is putting the women into chains? What freedom and liberty is she talking about? So this is just to have a peep into it. In the 20th century, how women are taking up the writing. Coming to the other scenario, there's so much of literature which has been written by women and literature which has been written on women, or there have been women in literature. Now I'll be taking up the aspect of feminism. What is that intense awareness of women which we find in the works, literature written by women? What is that identity crisis? Why is there a quest for it? So feminism in general, it is basically aimed at placing women in a very right and a just perspective. If we take it at the global platform, it is what is it trying to do? It is aiming at the eliminating of injustice. It wants equity, equal justice, equality at all levels. It analyzes the reasons for the women's oppression. So the question again arises, we talk about feminism, we read all this literature which has come from women. But if despite that, do women have equal rights? That is the question. And this actually generates the thought. This actually generates what should come up from this, especially our youngsters and our students. What is this feminism we are talking about? Gender equality? Is it a woman's issue? It is not a woman's issue. Why do we talk about feminism? Why not talk about as human beings? Why is there a need that we should be given a special status? Equally, I don't think this question ever would have come up. So gender equality is not a woman's issue. It is a human issue because that affects us all. What is feminism doing? And how do we define feminism? It is not something that you have to relate only to the definitions or to the quotes that is coming up by the feminists who are out in the streets demanding liberty and equality for women. Feminism is something that comes internally. When you read these works by the famous writers who are voicing, who are representing the women who are struggling in order to have their own space. Kehte hain na, thoda sa asman. That is all what they desire for. So that is what it is, a frame of mind. It is something that we need to accept internally. Only then we are going to come out with it. All humans believe in equality and justice. So why have women to struggle for it? The marginalized groups, they are to be empowered. They are to be given their due status. This is what we have taken up in feminism. Coming up to the historical perspective, I got this quote by Aristotle. The female is female by virtue of certain lack of qualities. That is how historically we've been defined. That's how we've been put in a frame, in a definition. Taking up again, Christine D. Pizzant says, first woman to hold modern views. She talks about men and women. Even in 1405, she wrote that men and women are equal beings created by God. Then why is the treatment different? See how early, you can say, the yearnings started in this particular, you can say, in this particular approach, in this particular perspective. So there were such modern views coming up. Then, of course, Aphra Behn, she was writing from 1640 to 1689. She is regarded as a symbol of early feminism. Her famous work is The Adventure of the Black Lady. And there is a special quote given by Virginia Woolf for Aphra Behn. This quote in double inverted commas, friends, that you're seeing has been said by Woolf. All women together ought to let flowers fall upon the tomb of Aphra Behn, for it was she who earned them the right to speak their minds. So you can see literature that is coming from women, the literature that is about women, how they're voicing about women, speaking their minds. And then I come to the most important woman writer, is the Mary Wollstonecraft, an 18th century British writer, a great philosopher, and also an advocate of women's rights. Her famous work of vindication of the rights of women. This was regarded as the earliest crusader regarding the emancipation of women. A vindication of the rights of women. So if we really want to know what are the protests that are coming, she protested against the institutions who were denying women their independent identity. She was very much aware about the struggles of women, the hardships of women, how they were fighting at all fronts. And why? Because they were exposed by the virtue of their sex. What is Mary Wollstonecraft basically demanding? Of course, apart from the movement, education, legal representation, the right to vote, the right to property, giving the right to take admission in a professional institute. Everything that she's come up is basically articulating the cause of the women's subjugation in the society. So this becomes a very important document. Literature about women, a vindication of the rights of women. Now here I've taken a male author, friends. Why? Because John Stuart Mill, as early as 1869, he was writing about the kind of subjection of women. He was a great supporter for the rights of women. And he has greatly contributed to the arousal of the feminine consciousness, the sensitivity towards women. He talks about the subjection of women and totally supports the cause of women. Coming to Virginia Woolf, A Room of One's Own. This always takes me back to Jane Austen. Yes, when we say that little bit of independence, little bit of liberty is required. She is regarded as a precursor of feminist literary criticism. See, we always talk about the patriarchal society, even in the Indian context, when we're talking about in the Indian conditions. We may be very modern, having a job of our own, stepping out from our narrow boundaries. But somewhere or the other, that kind of patriarchal aspect stays, either in the frame of mind or in the, you can say, the behavior of the family and friends. And to a certain extent, it marks a boundary. It curtails the creativity, the natural potential, the natural talent of a woman. So Virginia Woolf, she uses her pen as a weapon to demolish male authority and, of course, this hierarchical power structure. One of the most important works which should be read if you want to know about the women's rights, if you want to know the feminist perspectives. Here is a famous quote. Students, lock up your libraries if you like, but there is no gate, no lock, no bolt that you can set upon the freedom of my mind. It's a very strong quote from a very strong woman. A room of one's own, as the title suggests. It is an emblem of free and creative space for all women. A room which Virginia Woolf never had. So she's only demanding for that little space of her own, where she can say that, yes, this is my area, this is my domain. And she exhorted all the writers, women writers, to strive, to struggle, to have their own private space and economic freedom also for their own talent. Why should the writings of women be judged by men? Why should it not be given the same status and the reputation and the fame that comes, the writings which are coming from men? So that is her demand. Give me that space, a room of my own. Coming to Simone de Beauvoir, her famous work is The Second Sex. And I never forget her quote. One is not born, but rather becomes a woman. So who has made us the other in the society? It is the men who have made women the other, as per this particular author. And what is she asserting? Women are as capable of choice as men. They have the freedom to elevate themselves, and they do not need anybody's permission to do it. Kate Millett's, the famous work is The Sexual Politics, where she talks about the culture and the society, and it works because it is dominated by men. According to Kate Millett, she says that feminist text is the first book of academic feminist literary criticism. She argues that Western institutions manipulated the power to establish dominance of men. And of course, with the dominance of men, the repercussions come on the women. It is she who is subordinated. Betty Friedan, again, a very famous American writer and activist and a great feminist. She talks about the feminine mystique. Whenever I read Betty Friedan, I'm always reminded that this is the kind of, mystique we also create in our Indian society, isn't it? We tell our daughters, we tell the women that, okay, you must behave, you must abide by all the rules. Okay, and then you'll be an independent woman, to become an independent woman. So what are we doing basically? We create that ideal model, and then we expect the others to follow the cue. This is what Betty Friedan has taken up, a feminine mystique, which is created in the media, presenting women as the ideal model. She criticized the dominant cultural image of women because they are always limited to the role of a housewife and mother. So the time had come. These were the women who were encouraging other women to break all the shackles and to step forward, have a room of their own. Coming to Elaine Showalter and a famous work, A Literature of Their Own. And here, there again is in the perspective of women. A literature written by women, about women, totally regarding women. She came up with the three important stages of women's writing: feminine, feminist, and female. What does she mean by these three words? In feminine, she means that earlier, the women, what were they doing? The writers, they were imitating the mainstream of the literary tradition, which Elaine Showalter termed as feminine. Then talking about the feminist, this was characterized by the writings of women where they were protesting, they were struggling, they were raising their voice against the standards given by male and their values. And at the same time, they were advocating the rights and values of women, demanding autonomy for them. And then came the third stage, female, a self-discovery, the quest for identity, seeking for one's identity. And at the same time, what is Elaine Showalter warning women? A plea to stop the imitation of others. Showalter says, the women reject both imitation and protest because both are the forms of dependence. So now the time has come that they write on their own, in their own perspective, deciding their own norms and rules and principles, and stopping that imitation of others, especially the literature written by men. So these three important stages of feminine, feminist, and female became a landmark in our writings. And regarding these three phases, she has given the name as feminist critique, gynocritics, and the gender theory. Talking about gynocritics, friends, it is Showalter who had coined this term as gynocritics. And with the gynocritics, she's basically describing the literary criticism which is based in a feminine perspective. And what is the program of this gynocritics? To construct a female framework now for the analysis of women's literature. So now the analysis of literature is not to be done as per the norms and the principles set by the male world, but rather to construct it along the lines by the female framework. And to develop the new models, which are based on the study of the female experience. Stop the adaptation of the male models and the theories. This is what Showalter had taken up in this particular theory. Coming up in the Indian scenario, we do talk about fighting for women. The world belongs to women. Okay. thinking about girls, giving them their rights, making people aware about gender sensitivity and so many things. And then there's so much of literature that has been written for women. I got this quote because it creates a stir inside. I need feminism because I live in a society where mythical goddesses are worshipped, while the real women are mistreated, harassed, and humiliated every single day. Because this brings up the cause for women. So in the 20th century, when we find a change has come in the Indian literature in English, especially because of the arrival of so many women writers. So I'll take up a few women writers which will tell us that, yes, that gives a peep inside the mind of women. The novels of Indian women writers have become a very powerful paradigm as per the struggle of Indian women. Women, they have their feminine sensibility. There's an emergence of this literature and feminist in the sense of being written by the women novelists. So as I said, literature by women, literature about women, literature for women, written for the sake of women. So what were they doing basically? They were articulating their voice. A voice is given to the sufferings and aspirations and assertions of women in a traditionally male-dominated world. So a quick glance, we know that there were actually 3 phases of this feminism, and this is how this was reflected in the literature. The first phase, starting from the mid-19th century, when the male European colonists, they speak out against the social evils in the Indian scenario. So they talked about allowing the widow remarriage, to forbid the child marriage, reduce illiteracy, regulating the age of consent for women, and to ensure the property rights. So this was the first stage with the arrival of the colonists. So that started with the awareness for women that yes, even we have these rights and we can work in this particular direction. And then came the second phase from 1915 to the time when India got independent. When Gandhi incorporated women's movements into the Quit India movement, independent women's organizations began to emerge. And this led to the post-independence period when we started talking about the fair treatment of women, especially at their workplace, and the right to the political party. Of course, these 3 phases in the Indian scenario are very different from their counterparts in the Western world. So here I'm talking about in the Indian perspective. If we take up the post-independent state, here came the educated new woman, a woman who is more aware about herself, is ready to carve a niche for herself, to create her own space, to have her own economic independence, a search for her name, a search for a place, coming up into a new category of women. And this woman is not talking about ideals, but is more practical, more down to earth, and more human. Is ready to be flexible to a certain extent, but at the same time demanding a place. Again, I would quote Woolf, a room of one's own. The change that has come in the attitude of women as well as the women writers. So starting from there, that yes, literature is something that reflects society. So the change that is coming in the society, the growth that is coming up, again, is reflected in the works by our women authors. Even the local issues were taken up. Feminism in India, we know, is tied up to the local issues. It relates to the empowerment of women. It is a protest. They speak against the patriarchal oppression which has been going on. They talk about the gender issues. They talk about the rights and the reservations for women. We talk about the harsh gender limitations that are forced upon women. We talk about the crime against women. And of course, female feticide. There may be 1,000 other issues, and each of them, somewhere or the other, we find being reflected in the literature. I've taken a few Indian writers over here. One of my most favorite is Shashi Deshpande, a serious novelist with an honest voice, a rare writer with little pretentiousness, and her protagonists are women. So as the topic said, it's women in literature. We are taking up literature written by women and where women emerge as the protagonist also. These are some other works by Shashi Deshpande, like The Dark Holds No Terrors, That Long Silence, The Binding Wine, Roots and Shadows, A Matter of Time, Small Remedies, Moving On, If I Die Today, in the country of deceit and shadow play. And famous novel is That Long Silence. This particular work presents the oppressive situation, life situation, debilitating situation for women. Jaya is the heroine of this particular novel. The focus of the narrative is basically on what? That long silence, the silence of woman and the silencing of woman, which has been taken up as a subject. So the very title becomes very suggestive, full of meaning. A quote by Shashi Deshpande: self-revelation is a cruel process. The real picture, the real you never emerges. Looking for it is as bewildering as trying to know how you really look. 10 different mirrors show you 10 different ways. So it is not an easy way. It is not going to be a very smooth road for women. Coming to Kamla Markandeya, here are a few works by Kamla: Nectar in a Sieve, Some Inner Fury, A Silence of Desire, Possession, A Handful of Rice, The Nowhere Man, Two Virgins, The Golden Honeycomb, and The Pleasure City. Kamla Markandeya established herself by the publication of the first novel, that is The Nectar in a Sieve, which came up in 1954. And what is Kamla basically showing in that particular work? There is a spirit of acceptance, adjustment, and endurance also at the same time, though internal conflict is going on. So what is she portraying? What surfaces in that work? The basic struggles and agonies of post-independence India through the main protagonist, that is the character Rukmani. So Kamla Markandeya has taken the creative release, you can see, of the feminine sensibility in India in this particular work. Then taking a few more, Ruth Praveen Jhabvala, she portrays the cosmopolitan life in India. Her famous work is To Whom She Will. She portrays the agony of the ill-fated people who lost everything in partition, and of course the riots that followed later. Then Nayanthara Sehgal, her novels depict the inner trauma of Indians who are exposed to very social, political, and cultural changes. The human predicament is realistically portrayed in almost all her works. These are some of her works: Prison and Chocolate Cake, From Fear Set Free, A Time to Be Happy, Storm in Chandigarh, The Freedom Movement in India, In This Time of Mourning, The Day in the Shadow, A Voice for Freedom, Indira Gandhi, Her Road to Power, Plans for Departure, Rich Like Us, Mistaken Identity, A Situation in New Delhi, and The Lesser Brains. Then coming to Anita Desai, born in Missouri, a German mother and a Bengali Indian father. She was a professor of English at MIT, a great novelist, short story writer, and children's author. And I'm sure at PG level, all the students have gone through one or the other works of Anita Desai. Total 14 novels, and their 2 short story collections. A widely acclaimed author as the foremost Indian novelist. She has got a worldwide audience. And she's very popular. Novels are very popular. What is the uniqueness that she writes about in her novels? When we go through the novels, what are we witnessing? A long interrogation of the self through introspection. She even takes the psychological analysis in her works and the stream of consciousness. Through this technique, you get a peep inside the mind of the protagonist. What are her thoughts? What impact of the interaction with the outside world? What is that impact bringing onto her own personality? She's mostly treading over alienation, and she talks about the feminine psyche in the works. Her works are actually called a feminist discourse, because whenever we look at the protagonist, we find that seething discontent, that struggle that goes on internally. They're not ready to come to terms with the kind of situation they're forced to be. She has tried to probe into the depths of the women's psyche. She talks about the marital discord. She possesses poignant, hypersensitive knowledge, and of course, that inner psychological power also at the same time, which concerns the daily, real, everyday affairs of a family, dealing with a society, economic dealings, etc. So whenever we go to her works, we find that yes, there is some kind of content of the universal feminism that we find around, which you find in the novels of Anita Desai. Her famous works are Cry the Peacock, Voices in the City, Bye Bye Blackbird, Where Shall We Go This Summer, Fire on the Mountain, Clear Light of Day, Village by the Sea, In Custody, and Fasting, Feasting. Apart from these, there are many other women writers who have been writing about women. It is not possible here to take in this short time, but I've just put in the names over here like Geeta Mehta's Raj Kalpola, Nina Sibbal's Yatra is very important. Arundhati Roy is the god of small things. She takes us to Kerala. Jhumpa Lahari's interpreter of melodies and the namesake. Namita Gokhale's Paro. Indra Sena's Animus People. Here, Indra has based this particular work on the tragedy of Bhopal, where she deals with poverty, hunger, and other calamities that fall into heavily on human life. Then, of course, not to forget Amrita Pritam, the famous woman poet and novelist and essayist who has written more than 100 books, which are translated in Indian and foreign languages. Sudha Kulkarni Murthy, a great social worker and author, who has initiated so many government schools in Karnataka. And she sees to it that they are all provided with computers and the facility of the library. And because of all this kind of social work that she's put in, she was awarded Padma Shri in 2006. Her most famous work is How I Taught My Grandmother to Read. And another is The Dollar Bahu. Then, of course, there's been Manju Kapoor, Bharti Mukherjee, Chitra Banerjee, Divakurni, Shobha Dey, Kiran Desai, Kamla Bhasin, Geeta Hariharan, Namita Gokhale, Meena Alexander, and so many others. Now I'll take up some to get a peep of the women authors who are in regional areas. So there are a few slides in which I have taken up these regional women authors who have made a great contribution. Like here is Begum Rokia Sakhawat Hussain, and her famous work is Sultana's Dream. Then she's also written Motichoo and the Utopian Fiction. Indian women writers from the early 20th century today, we know, yes, there is a tradition of fine women writers. And Rukia Sakhawat, she was the leading Bengali feminist thinker, writer, and educationist. We can say that she was decades, you can say, before her time. And even you will find me delighted to read her works because she's advocated for men and women to be treated equally. She held education to be of central precondition for women's liberation. She is responsible for establishing the first, you can say, a school for the Muslim girls in Calcutta. And, you know, her birthday is 9 December and she died on 9 December. So Bangladesh government, it confers the Begum Rokia Padak to individual women for their exceptional achievement. These are some of her famous works. Abrodh Bhashini, The Secluded Women. Boli Garto is a short story. Nari Radhika, The Rights of Women. This is an unfinished essay for the Islamic Women's Association. God Gives, Man Robs. And then Education Ideals for the Modern Indian Girl. So there's so many women writers at the regional level who are putting in the contribution for women. One such author is Cornelia Sorabji. She's a great Indian lawyer, a social reformer, and a writer. She was born in Devlali to a Parsi, and then her name, you know, Cornelia, this was named after her adoptive grandmother, Lady Cornelia. Her father was a Christian missionary, and mother was adopted by a British couple. So mostly her work was the social work on behalf of the Parda Nasheens, women who were veiled and forbidden to communicate with the outside male world. And she really worked for them. She helped almost 600 women and orphans to fight legal battles. And we can say that she's the first woman to practice law in India. First female graduate from Bombay University. the first woman to study law at Oxford University. That's the reason why she's taken up so many cases of orphans. And here the picture for you all is this Cornelia Sorabji's bust. This is the Lincoln's Inn in London. These are some of her famous works. Love and Life, Behind the Parda, written by Cornelia. Then Sun Baby, Studies in the Child Life of India. Shubala, Indian Tales of the Great Ones Among Men, Women and Birds, and Between the Twilights. So yesterday when Madam Dubey had asked me to speak on women and literature, I said it's such a vast topic. She said, no, you just try to fit in a kind of a peep into the literature that women have written. So I'm just trying to that yes, we know the mainstream literature, but what about the others who are writing for women? And I've really come up and working so much for the society. Sarojini Naidu, they all know the name, the Nightingale of India, the great poet, first female governor of the Indian state, Indian political activist as well as a poet, and of course, a great proponent of civil rights and women's emancipation, an important figure of India's struggle. And in Naidu's work as the poet, she was called the Nightingale of India or Bharat Kokila by Mahatma Gandhi, the first woman president. Her debut collection is The Golden Threshold. The picture is there for you all students to see. And some more works by Sarojini Naidu are The Bird of Time, The Songs of Life, Death and Spring, The Broken Wing, Songs of Love, Death and Spring, including The Gift of India. Then in 1919, she came up with the work of Muhammad Jinnah, an ambassador of unity. Songs of India, The Feather of the Dawn. And in 1971, she came up with the Indian Weavers. On the left side of the screen, you can see the stamp in her honor. Then there's another great lady who has worked for the society, is Savitribai Phule. India's first female teacher, you can say, of the first female school in India. She's a great Indian social reformer, educationist, and a poet from Maharashtra. She played a great important role in improving the rights for the women of India. And that is why she's also regarded as the mother of Indian feminism. She worked a lot to abolish the discrimination and the unfair treatment of people based on caste and based on gender. Some of her works are given over here. Kavya Phule is the collection of poems written by Savitribai Phule. In 1854, there are 41 poems on these themes like nature, social issues, instructive poems, and the historical poems. Then she's also written a book in which she has taken Jyoti Rao's speeches, which is again edited by her. Then her letters to Jyoti Rao, her husband, speeches of Matoshri Savitribai, and finally, Bhavakashi Subodh Ratnakar. These are some of the works by this famous Indian reformer. Then there's another lady, Tarabai Shinde, a great author, a feminist activist. She was the one who protested for patriarchy and for the caste discrimination. Her famous work is Stree Purush Tulna, and this is also translated in English, a comparison between women and men. This was published in Marathi in 1882. So this is regarded as a courageous attempt by a brave and courageous writer, original feminist thinker and critic. And this particular work is regarded as the first modern Indian feminist text. And there's one more work, Karukku. Karukku is written by Bama. She was Faustina Sasurat, a Tamil Dalit feminist, a committed teacher and a novelist. She rose to fame because of her autobiographical novel, Karukku. This tells about the joys and sorrows which were experienced by the Dalit Christian women in the state of Tamil Nadu. She talks about caste and gender discrimination in Christianity and Hinduism. And the Dalit feminism, she talks about the inner strength of the subaltern women. So this particular work, Karukku, is on the literature syllabi of so many colleges and universities across the world today. Bama's writing, they have also been dramatized. I have not read this. I got it because I was really impressed after reading the little brief biography. Of course, there are more women writers. As I said, it's not possible to take all, but to mention a few, especially who are working in the regions, is Lakshmi S. Tirupati Sundari. She is a Tamil writer. Then Anupa Chandrasekhar, an Indian playwright from Chennai. Srilatha Batliwala, she is a social activist from Bengaluru. Neel Kamal Puri, she's from Patiala and has written mostly her focuses is around the state of Punjab. Anuradha Sharma Pujari, she's an Assamese author. So these are four, and there's so many others who are articulating the voice of women. Now I'm talking also about the feminist publishers who have come up, who are publishing the works of women. So Urvashi Butalia and Ritu Menon, they had started their own startup by the name Kali for Women. This was the first Indian publishing house for women to make the India voices heard through academic publishing and also for the activist work. But sadly, in 2003, both of them, they separated, they parted ways. Urvashi Butalia, she has set up her own publishing house by the name of Zuba Books in 2003. And Ritu Menon, she has founded her own publishing house by the name of Women Unlimited. These are the two works you can see at the screen, which have been published by these two writers. In 2011, both Urvashi Butalia and Ritu Menon, they were jointly conferred the Padma Shri Award for the great contribution for the nation. So friends, coming back to the topic, women and literature, such a vast topic. And I could only take in brief a brief outline and take you through the journey of how you can say the expressions of women, the renderings of women, writing about women or the women protagonists, literature by the women, about women has taken a perspective and the growth and the development of it as per whatever is happening in the society. We saw through the historical perspective, the Elizabethan writers, how they were taking up the heroines of Shakespeare and coming to the Victorian age and coming to the modern aspect of it. Then we also took up the feminist writers who were writing in the West, the most important, and who are regarded as a great feminist and have come up with the theories like Kate Millett, Elaine Showalter, Virginia Woolf, Jane Austen. Then in the Indian scenario, the Indian women writers like Shashi Deshpande, then Tara Sehgal, and so many others. We also got a peep into the regional women writers, how they were articulating the voice of women through their own means, and so much of work which has been published and also translated in so many languages and they've been awarded. And of course, lastly, the publishers, the women publishers who have come up in order to publish the works of women. I thank you all for giving such a patient hearing to this particular presentation. Here is a quote for you, friends. I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the waters to create many ripples. Mother Teresa's. Thank you all so much for your kind attention.
Thank you, ma'am. Such a wonderful lecture and well informed. Very informative. Very, very informative, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Now for the interactive session, we invite questions from our participants. Please unmute your mics one by one and ask the questions from our esteemed speaker. Anybody wants to ask questions to ma'am? Please unmute
yes,
your mics one by one.
Ma'am, I want to ask.
Yes.
Ma'am, I want to ask.
Yes, yes. You just unmute your mic and after asking a question, you have again mute your mic. And she will
Okay,
answer.
ma'am. Okay. Ma'am, what explains the fiction gap between men and women?
I'm sorry, I cannot get the question.
Repeat your question.
Ma'am, what explains the fiction gap between men and women?
Kindly repeat. I'm not able to.
Am I audible, ma'am?
Just keep the mic a little distance from you because you're going.
Ma'am, I want to ask, what explains the fiction gap between men and women?
The gap between men and women, is that your question?
Fiction gap, ma'am.
Still not able to get it. Hello? Please write the question in the chat box, please.
Yes, you can write your question in the chat box. Any other question?
Ma'am, can I ask question from the host?
I would like to ask the question.
Yeah, I got the question now. The question is there in the chat box. What explains the fiction gap between men and women? Is that the question? Yes? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. See, basically, when you talk about the fiction gap, women, of course, are more emphatic. They are more strong whenever they have to say anything. So their expression is of a greater emotional range, isn't it? And that is why you find the fiction written by women better. But of course, the way it was evaluated earlier, or whenever the fiction which was written by women was taken up, it was not given all that importance, right? From where, once again, comes the same thing, that why is the writings or the works written by women not at par with the works by the male authors? Okay, are you getting my point? There lies a gap in that kind of literary art. You can say the kind of gender gap, because they were not ready to accept. It was rather ignored to a certain extent, because maybe it was more of psychological or more of emotional, whatever women had to say, why they were not given that particular aspect of that particular status. See, when we talk about the feminists, this is what they had taken up earlier also. That why is, what Elaine Showalter says, that why not take up everything as per principle, as per theory, which has been come up from women? Why should we try to imitate that comes from the male world? Okay. Are you getting my point? The person who had asked the question, Prashant Agnihotri, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Is the concept clear to you, Prashant?
Yes, ma'am, clear. Ma'am, I have one more question.
Please.
Ma'am, according to you, what are your thoughts about not only men's and society, but also women are responsible for their condition in our society?
See, that is a question that needs one full session, I should say, right? To give my view that what are the conditions of women. It is something very personal and it needs a lot of deliberation. Each and every individual has a different perspective to this particular point. So I think it would be better if we stick to questions on the basis of the presentation or the topic that we've taken up over here.
Yes, next question, please.
Okay, ma'am.
Please.
Ma'am, I would like to ask a question.
Yes, please.
Yes, please unmute your mic and then ask the question.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible. Nilay Mandal, is that it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
ma'am.
Yes, Nilay.
As we can see that the poets like Ted Hughes and Sylvia Plath, both are the eminent writers of a single age. But the writing purpose or the writing themes of both of them are different. So can we found the impact of different types of wars, that is the English Civil War or the French Revolution or the most eminent wars like World War I or II, in the writing of the various female writers, as we can found in the poet of which makes Wordsworth the poet of man, that is the French Revolution. So can we found the impact of wars upon the women writings also?
Yes, there are impact of women, even if it is not. For example, see, if you have read Jane Austen, I'll give a very simple example, which most of the students can also identify. And there was an allegation against her that she doesn't take whatever the political conditions were there at that time. But she has given her own reason for that, that I limit myself to the 2 inches of ivory. But that doesn't mean if she's not mentioning the wars directly, there are army officers, there are indirect references in the background. It is not that the author is not aware about the political situation or whatever is going in the society. Not necessary that it has to come on the surface or through the dialogue, what you're reading, okay? It is always there in the backdrop of that particular work, that we're talking about Sylvia Plath, or we talk about Wordsworth, or we talk about Jane Austen.
Yes, ma'am.
Next question.
Zakia? Nile?
Yes, ma'am. I would like to ask something else. Can I?
Yes, yes, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
So, ma'am, as we can see that John Milton is supposed to be a most eminent writers of his age. So, can we say that Mary Wollstonecraft in her book The Vindication of Women Rights, that were published in 1792, is somewhere she used to quote Milton in this book?
That is for you to find out. Kindly read it and see if you can find any kind of cross-referencing or any kind of indirect reference.
I have seen that in the she have quoted something about the Paradise Lost, book 9, about the perspective of Eve.
Okay, all right, that's very good.
Can it be relatable to the society also, as Milton has used the biblical characters? So can we relate it to the society also? That
yes,
it was
why
a society.
Not? Yes, yes, why not? Of course, you can relate it to the society too.
Yes, ma'am.
Next one.
Ma'am,
thank you, ma'am.
Good afternoon, respected teachers and our speaker. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are audible. Vatsal Tiwari, yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Vatsal.
Ma'am, as we have discussed, as you told us about our Vedas, starting from the Vedas, then Greek traditions and historical aspects of feminism. In Roman literature, why there are not any eminent women characters? Because at that time, there were many established houses of very powerful men, and their wives, like the wife of Marcus Crassus, Gaius Julius Caesar, and from the house of Pompey, they were very powerful people. And their women are, I have read in many texts that they killed even their slaves, their women killed their slaves. Then they were also powerful because they killed someone. And why they never wrote, or any eminent women writer never emerged from Roman Empire?
Hello, Vatsal, kindly, I'm not able to get your question. Can you just put it in the chat box, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Please write your question in the chat box. I could get the background that you said, or kindly repeat it.
Ma'am, I just simply want to ask that women in Roman Empire were very powerful. Despite their powers, they never wrote or they never penned down anything. I want to ask that why?
They've never written what?
Any text, or there were no any famous women writer?
Voice is echoing. Can you write it in the chat box, please, if you don't mind?
Yes, sure, ma'am.
Please, please. Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are very much audible.
Ma'am, can I ask question from
yes,
ma'am?
Please. Yes, yes.
Yes, Utkarsh, ask
ma'am, this is Utkarsh. Ma'am, I want to ask that let's talk. Does not talk about the men or women in our society. Let's talk about the literature. How do you think the gender plays a role in analyzing literature or even text? What role does gender plays in? I want to ask only simple this.
Gender plays role in? Hello?
Yes, ma'am. Role in analyzing literature. Yes, ma'am.
See, gender, when you talk about gender in common sense, what is actually gender? first thing. What do you understand by gender?
Ma'am, gender, as you talk about that, we are humans. We have equal powers. Men and women both are superiors. Just don't let anyone down. I have a only question related to this. That what are the analyzing features or what are the roles behind the man or woman to analyze a literature or text?
That basically you are going into another field. What actually gender theory is, right?
Yeah,
so what is basically understood when you read literature? What is the masculine aspect of it? What is the feminine aspect, or any kind of other behavior which you also call as queer behavior? It is not limited only to particular history or to particular literature, whatever you're doing, right? So what are these genders, roles and responsibilities in relation to the society you have to see? How you're expected to be in that kind of society? How you're expected to behave, the way you are coming up, right? Your own identity and the roles that are played by male and female, that is by gender. Performance of those roles, the disciplinary aspect, the works that are coming up. And also we have to take it in perspective of the social situation, you can say, or the other situations that are there. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Next question.
I can hear 2-3 voices coming up. Sarita?
Ma'am, my question is in chat box.
Yes, ma'am. Please please answer the question of Vatsal Tiwari.
Why are no leading women authors from Roman Empire, despite their being of powerful and of position? There may be women authors. I would not say that there are no women authors. It's difficult to say because unless you have gone through the history. But yeah, leading women are there in the Roman Empire. If you have read through the dramas, aren't they? Yes? Who's asking this question? Vatsal?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Tell me, have you gone through the Roman Empire? Have you seen any kind of literature when you say that there's no leading women writers over there?
Yes, ma'am. I have gone through the history, the Roman history.
Please mute your mics.
Kindly mute your mics.
Please mute your mics, all of you.
Hello, kindly mute your mics, please. That's better, thank you. Yes, I was talking to Vatsal.
Yes, ma'am.
See, basically, when we talk about Rome, and during the time when you're taking it, they did not regard their women at the same status, you can say, which is given to men, isn't it? For example, if you talk about the Augustus speech, if you're talking about the law, if you're talking about the citizenship, who are these people? And as far as the leading women are concerned, when you're saying why there are no leading women,
Ma'am, you are muted. Ma'am, you have muted your mic.
Ma'am, please unmute yourself.
Is that okay? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So maybe because I have not gone through the actual history of the Roman Empire that there are no women authors. It is not possible not to have women authors. But to a certain extent, we can say that women may not have articulated in the way the modern feminists were coming up with. Okay, that may be one aspect of it.
And then what are the practical differences of coping between men and women? Why they can't cope up?
I think that is a psychological question and not a thing to be taken up over here. If you don't take up, isn't it? And needs a bit of counseling and a different kind of session. Regarding the coping up, it will be absolutely different. I mean, we're going on a different track now, isn't it? We can take up this session in some other session when we are there together, okay? And we can decide that why men and women are not able to cope up. Where lies that, you know, the difference of opinion, that they're not compatible, or at mental level, they're not able to see each other's viewpoints in the right perspective.
No, but there are very theoretical aspects. There are many, but
there can be so many
practical.
And that's what I'm saying. No, that question that you have raised is of a different strain. Let us stick ourselves to the presentation or the topic of women in literature over here, isn't it? because there, the topic that you have raised, that why they're not compatible or why they do not see eye to eye to each other, is something very different. It may be at the personal level, the theoretical level, practical level, and there may be so many other, at platforms at the social level. So many different things can be there. It's just not a thing to be taken up over here. Getting my point? But here, as far as literature is concerned, we can talk in that particular direction. If you're taking at the personal level, men and women, they do not see each other at the same level. What was the question that you just raised? What was the last thing you said?
And the practical aspects of why they can't
the practical aspects as to why they can't cope up is again to be taken up in the form of psychology. We can have a counseling session, when we take it up, that what are the reasons why you're not able to see each other at the same level or from the same perspective. Why don't we judge things exactly the same way one is doing? It can be personal also, and it can also be, there may be so many other issues involved with it. Okay, Vatsal?
Yes, ma'am.
Getting my point? And what are you doing, Vatsal?
Ma'am, I'm student of PG final year, MA final.
Okay, very good. All right. I would like to have your feedback on the session.
It was quite interesting and very knowledgeable.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question?
Be delighted to have you next time.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you so much, Vatsal.
Yes, Kadam ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. It's so nice. Interacting with students is the best part,
Best part.
Yes, ma'am. That is why we have organized this interactive session also. And now for the vote of thanks, I would like to invite
Thank you, ma'am.
Alok Mishra to extend vote of thanks on behalf of the Department of English. Yes, over to you, Alok, sir. Please unmute your mic.
First of all, I would like to tender and solicit my vote of thanks to our eminent and esteemed Chief Speaker, Professor Vinita Singh Chaudhary, who has enlightened us with a very interesting and knowledgeable talk on the topic. She has left no nook and corner regarding the topic of women and literature. She has encompassed the ancient and the modern, from the ancient to the modern, the ages of Vedas and Purans to the contemporary times, and also from the age of Socrates to the Western literature. She has also touched all the vistas and avenues of Commonwealth literature, Indian English literature, and other writing in English. And for that, I am very grateful to Madam Vinita Singh Chaudhary, Professor Madam Vinita Singh Chaudhary. And secondly, I feel vouchsafed to the patron and the principal of our TRS College, Professor Arpita Avasthi, and to our convener, Professor Salini Dubey, who is also the head of the department of our Department of English, TRS College, Rewa, and Madam Sarita Kadam, who is the organizing secretary of this function and this national webinar. Thirdly, I will also pay my special thanks to Professor S.P. Shukla sir and Professor Mahesh Shukla sir for being the troubleshooter and making us solemnizing this program successfully completed. And last but not least, our members of the department, Professor Kalpana Agrawal, Professor A.K. Jha sir, and very senior Professor R.P. Ojha sir, and other respected members of our staff members are also, who have been the very patient listeners of this talk, are very important to us. And finally, the students of our department and the other listeners are also, they expect our admiration for hearing us very soundly. And once again, I thanks to all of you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
We will have you again.
Sure, sure. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Vinita. I'm Ambika Patnaik. I'm not one of the fraternities of English. I'm from my proficiency is business economics.
Hello.
I've done my MPhil in business economics and I'm the alumni of the Dr. Avdesh Pratap Singh University, Rewa. And I am so honored that I am a student of my beloved teacher, Dr. Rajiv Dubey. And yes, so I'm so grateful to Dr. Shalini Dubey to invite me today for this seminar, for this webinar. And I'm so pleased to be part of this. I'm a voracious reader. I have keen interest in English, not so in literature, but all the authors and all the list of books and the prominent authors you spoke about, I'm so happy to share with you that I happen to have read most of them. And
great. Very good. Congratulations.
Yes, and I have jotted down all the would-be readings I'm going to do now. So thank you so much for giving me a long list of read, which I'm going to purchase and then add to my arsenal. You can see I have got good list of
yeah, I can see the background.
That's
it
right.
shows an intellectual person's room.
No, I'm just an amateur, but then this opportunity of meeting people like you who have proficiency in this gives me an honor and a privilege, and to be like you. And as you rightly quoted, that we cannot brighten the world around, but we can at least brighten the corner where we are. So thank you so much for this.
Thank you, Ambika. It was a pleasure knowing that you were there as one of the audience. I hope to be in touch in future
I hope that I get this opportunity again to join one of your other seminars as well.
Sure.
I'm sure I'll stay in touch with Dr. Dubey and she will help me to be part of that.
I would love that. Thank you, Ambika. Thank you so much. It's an honor.
Sure, Ambika. Thank you very much for liking this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Namaskar, sir. Thank you for giving this opportunity. Thank you, madam. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mahesh Shukla, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.